This podcast is a proud member of the UUOP Network.
Your attention, please, and welcome to the Portkey Passport, a Disney podcast for adults, where we discuss all things travel, Disney, and beyond. Grab your passport, sit back, relax, and enjoy the wildest podcast in suburbia. Hosts, grab your park bags and stand clear of the doors as we dive into this episode.
Hey everyone, this is the third and last installment of the mini episodes coming from D23. There still will be a little bit of activity at the convention today, mostly fan events though, so I doubt we're going to experience a whole lot of new information. However, last night we were treated with Horizons: A Carousel of Progress, and this was quite the production. It did start a bit late, it ran a bit late, and I honestly felt like I was watching the Emmys. There were performances, there was singing, there were surprise guests. It was kind of a wild experience. But before I dive too much into that, I did want to mention that Smuggler's Run is coming to Fortnite today. So as this podcast drops, and it's called Smuggler's Gambit. So for you Fortnite fans out there, you'll now have an opportunity to interact with characters from Star Wars. You do need a Disney account that you connect with Fortnite, so just be aware of that. If you don't have a Disney account, you will have to set one up. And if you don't have a Disney account and you're listening to this podcast, why not? All right, on to the big event. So, Carousel of Progress, we are all aware, is currently under renovation. They did, however, give us a sample view of the 1980s Halloween scene, and we were informed that there will be new voice characters. Jamie Lee Curtis will be playing the role of Mother, and Bryan Cranston will be taking on the role of the father. So the voices will change, and this is set to open next spring. I was kind of surprised, considering Disney's track record with delayed openings. Remember Dreams Come True is coming to Disneyland. And starting in February of 2027, DCA is getting a slightly modified version of the original World of Color. So that's great for them. The Magic Happens Parade will be returning to Disneyland next summer. And the Infinity transports that are on Avengers Infinity Defense have been previewed. There's been models. You can see visuals of what ride system is going to look like. The general storyline is that you'll be battling King Thanos. This expansion is essentially doubling the current size of the campus in DCA. So that's pretty exciting. They're bringing back voice characters, including Jeremy Renner and Chris Hemsworth, and Robert Downey Jr. will be reprising his role as Iron Man. So thankfully, we're getting some pretty cool highlights from there. One thing to be aware of, too, is that the second Stark Flight Lab Train Like an Avenger ride will also be part of this expansion, which is scheduled to open sometime in 2028. The other news coming out from Disneyland is that we have an unknown length of time we'll be waiting for this, but they are looking to completely renovate their Tomorrowland. So it's going to get some much needed love. From what we can tell, this will probably take priority over Avatar, the Avatar area that was originally slated to come to that space. They haven't written off Avatar. That's not what they're saying. But what they are focusing on is finishing the Coco ride that is currently in development, being built in DCA, and then turning their attention to Tomorrowland. So that's pretty exciting that the original park is getting some much needed love. In terms of Orlando, I have to say, I was a bit whelmed by the information. For those of us that are huge Disney fans, there really wasn't a ton of information that we didn't already know, but there were a couple of surprises. So, for starters, the spaceship Earth update that we had previously been informed of and then fell by the wayside has been re-energized, and the focus is now going to be on human connection, instead of specifically human communication. Now, they said during the presentation that it was still going to be distinctly Epcot, so interpret that as you will, and we'll see how this develops as they celebrate progress through human connection. The other surprise was that the Yeti, sorry, not a furry Jedi, the Yeti is coming back to life. They did spend some time during the panel poking fun at themselves, mentioning that the disco Yeti that we have come to know and love. So that is going to be replaced at some point in the future when we don't exactly know. While we're in Animal Kingdom, let's talk about the Central Americas. So we were aware of the carousel. They had started releasing some of the animals. There are now 22 different characters that you'll be able to ride on this carousel. They gave it the name, and mind you, I am not the best at speaking Spanish, but the name is El Carrusel de los Animalitos. So, Carousel of Little Animals. Again, I mentioned this before, but it is adorable. It is beautifully hand carved. I'm looking forward to not necessarily writing this, but looking at it. I'm getting the sense it'll probably be a smaller carousel than the regal one we see behind Cinderella Castle. The other ride in Animal Kingdom that we need to focus on is the Indy attraction that is in the previous dinosaur location. As I'd mentioned earlier, it has a Mayan ruin facade, and we now know that the plot is where we get to go into the underworld, and we battle all kinds of underworld legends, including a giant serpent by the name of Sukan. We were also informed that the name of this attraction is Indiana Jones and the Myth of the Jade Serpent. So this is pretty cool. They actually had a fair number of still photos of the progress that they've made. It is really coming together. One other thing that I think is just a nice touch, you are using Harrison Ford's likeness for the character of Indy in the ride versus the somewhat unknown nondescript gentleman that is found on the West Coast. In other news, We also know a little bit more about the second ride, kind of family friendly ride in Kanto. Um, and this is Antonio's Fiesta de Encanto. Um, I was wrong. I'll admit it. The ride vehicles themselves look very much like the vehicles that you would see on Rise of Resistance. However, there is no height requirement for this attraction. So clearly, this attraction is going to be a much slower paced ride. We're not going to be getting whipped around. It is very much your like standard dark ride. Um, and essentially, you are living part of the casita and you're going through his celebration on his gift day. And you get to travel through Antonio's room and you see all of these different animatronic animals. They have a couple of them on display, a capybara, they have a donkey. There's supposed to be like 50 of different animals in total. And this makes sense, right? We're in Animal Kingdom, lots of animals. Antonio's gift is that he can talk with animals and interact with them. So I'm interested to see what becomes of this attraction. Alrighty. So I think the two biggest things that we need to tackle yet are in the Magic Kingdom, and that is to highlight the actual names of what's coming to Cars Land, and that is Miss Fritter's Daredevil spinoff and the Cars Ridge Run Rally. There's also going to be a new show, Cars Lightning Racers, that's coming to television, and it's geared for younger kids. So I'm thinking that the fact that they announced all of this information together and that there's a show geared for younger kids, that we're going to see this more of like a kid-friendly area. I'd mentioned yesterday that they're reprising the Barrel Bridge. It sounds to me like, honestly, I think it's going to be a plus. I don't know how wild and crazy the lines and the crowds are going to be initially in this space. It is smaller than our next area we're going to talk about, and that is Villains Land. Now, they held out until the very end to talk about this. And we were all just waiting and sitting at the edge of our seats to know if we are going to get any more information. Now, there is a model of the coaster that will be Maleficent themed available for viewing. I honestly, though, got the impression they have nothing else really planned beyond a coaster that a company is building for them. And let's face it, if you know anything about Universal, Coaster Track can go in pretty dang quick. It's all the thematic pieces that can take a long time to install. So I would not be surprised if this area, which is massive, like 15 acres, doesn't open until the mid 2030s. Um, which, you know what, if it gives them time to really come together and have a full, complete image of something that, guests want to see, that the park deserves to have, I will work on being patient with that. um, the last little bit of park news that I wanted to share was about Monsters Inc. Land. And this one feels a little more obtainable. So, first of all, we do now know that the show that's replacing Muppets 3D, the Muppets 3D Vision show, is Welcome to Monstropolis. There's a new Randy Newman song that will be introduced during this show. It looks really cute. Like I said yesterday, it's in the Glob Theater. And in addition to that, we also got some details on the rest of that park area. So I thought I would just highlight these things. because that's right, folks, it's opening next year. Now, that doesn't mean the coaster that they're building currently there will be up and running, but the rest of the land is supposedly going to be opening sometime next year. That's wild to me. I was not expecting that to happen until at least 2028. Again, based on the history of how slow Disney is at opening new things. So, just to run through what they did share, replacing Pizza Rizzo, we will have Archie's Scare Pig Pizza. So, if you guys remember from Monsters University, there was a little pig with multiple legs. His name was Archie. He was a mascot. So, it'll be featured around him. We also have Monsters University Alumni Club. Now, I'm not really sure what this is going to be. This is the venue that features like university clubs, fraternities, sororities, famous graduates, and then inside the alumni club is the Elite Scarers Club. Now, the vibe I'm getting is that this is either going to be a DVC lounge or some aspect of Club 33. I'm thinking that the space outside of that might just be character meet and greets, kind of like what they used to have in when you would meet Edna Mode and stuff like that. We don't really have any detail though. I'm just kind of speculating. Then we have the Scare Emporium, which is replacing the pretty much defunct Muppet store that had sat empty for quite some time. And then kind of the gem of the space is Harryhausen's restaurant. They showed video of the fully functioning octopus animatronic that makes the sushi, and honestly, this place looks amazing. I have high hopes for that as well. One other piece of information they did share about the coaster was that, from what we can tell from the video they showed yesterday of the rendering, guests will be entering on the scare floor. And then once you're locked in place on the ride vehicle itself, you will be essentially shot into the air 40 feet and you'll take off from there. So this start to the roller coaster is different from any other start we've seen at Disney, and honestly is a relatively kind of novel concept across most parks. So I'm really excited about that as well. And finally, they did touch on Disney Cruise Line. So I thought I would just highlight a few things about that. They're doubling their Southern California cruises. I'm not sure how that's going to go. I recently took a cruise in Southern California to Mexico. It was beautiful, and I really hope that this endeavor pays off. The Wish is being shipped, over to Europe, and the Magic and Wonder are headed to Alaska. They did share some additional information about the Believe. It is the next Wish class ship that'll be joining the fleet. Tinkerbell is prominently displayed on the bow. Now, this is a departure from every other ship, which either has displayed either Mickey or Minnie. So this is our first non-mouse character. And then on the stern of the ship, we have Woody and Buzz, a very playful kind of wood block font on the back that is already getting mixed reviews. But I love that they're showing some Pixar fandom here. Additionally, we know that there's going to be a Moana statue in the Grand Hall, or that's going to be the icon for the ship. And all of these things together are supporting the concept of promises and possibilities. We were additionally made aware that a new class of ship is yet to be announced as to what the name will be, but is coming to the fleet in 2029. I believe this will be ship 11 of 13, and it is smaller than our Dream class ships we've seen, but larger than the original Magic class ships. And from previous announcements, DCL hopes to have 13 ships fully functioning by 2030, the end of 2030. So we will have to see what is in store. Big changes happening. I expect that across the board, we're going to see announcements getting dropped periodically. Some of the smaller things I think are going to be fillers. For one, we're waiting for larger areas like Cars Land or in DCA, the Avengers Campus expansion to finalize. So we're really just sitting on the precipice of a lot more information to come. I'm hopeful, but I also need proof from Disney that they're not going to drag their feet on getting things built, doing it well, but not taking so much time that it starts to irritate their guests. So let me know what you think. I know I didn't cover everything over the D23 weekend, but were there things you heard that I didn't mention that we should talk about? Are there things that you were surprised to hear about, things you wish they would have talked about? Let us know. Until our next full-length episode, I hope you enjoyed these mini-sodes and that you walk away with some new news. Take care, guys.
If you're looking for a great, big, beautiful tomorrow, continue to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Just search the Portkey Passport. Want in on the antics? Send us a transmission at portkeypassport@portkeyvacations.com with your comments and questions. Listen and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and everywhere else podcasts are found. And feel free to leave a cast compliment in a review. Plan your next magic adventure by contacting your favorite Portkey Vacations agent at portkeyvacations.com. Podcasts assemble on the UUOP Network, the unofficial Universal Orlando podcast, Rush of Fear, a Halloween Horror Nights podcast, the Taste of Universal podcast, the unofficial Universal United Kingdom podcast, Big Dumb Stuff and Theme Park Duo for West Coast news and updates. And check out our network partner, The Fudge Factor, on YouTube for park vlogs.